the first time I was ever part of a pet burial service. And
was it your pet?
No. And this is the crazy thing. My aunt, who is just 6 years older than us, she gets up. And I don't even know how everybody knew what was happening in each other's lives in the 80s or the 70s. This had to be the 70s.
There was no Facebook.
She's like, Jennifer, Julie, come on. We need you to be pallbearers at this service. So we walked
needed to carry
several blocks down to a girl's house, and she is burying, I think it's a hamster or a bunny. I don't know. I don't remember. But they have my sister and me on either side of this shoebox.
Whoa.
And we are the pallbearers, and we're like lowering it into the ground.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're just sitting there quietly while they put the dirt on top of it.
Yeah.
And I'm just sort of like taking it all in. And then as soon as we walk away, my aunt looks at me and she goes, you know that bunny's going to haunt you forever.
What?
And I'm like, what?
Didn't she ask you to be there?
Wow.
To get haunted?
Why did you get us involved?
Yeah.
If we're going to be haunted by the bunny.
Yeah.
She was really into a lot of haunted ghost stories. Which, truthfully, I think I really needed counseling after that part of my life had wrapped up. Because everything she said in my mind was true.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I'm going to be hunted by.
Yeah. That reminds me of the episode of The Office where they have a bird funeral.
Yes, that's what we were talking about today. Yeah.
And then Ryan is doing his interview and he said, I remember we buried my pet, fish or something when I was 5. And I remember thinking, I'm a little bit too old for this. And I was 5. And the whole office is out there like burying this bird. I'm trying to think of, even like my animals that have like most dogs that have died have like died from something tragic and we had to take them to the vet and they died there.
Yeah.
It wasn't now we're going to, like I haven't had like an old.
Find and dead.
Like yours you probably had to euthanize because the end of its life. Like,
well,
I just haven't had an animal die at home, I guess.
Well, we grew up.
Hamsters die at home.
Sure.
Yeah. You don't go euthanize your hamster.
We grew up out in the middle of we grew up kind of in a farming community. And so I remember my aunt's dog, same aunt, her dog passed away and they buried him in the back of the yard. And she goes, see that mound over there? Yeah, that's where the dog is.
She really did want you to
And she goes, if you go over there, if you walk over there, you can hear him.
Did she have kids of her own?
Yeah.
Did they turn out normal or are they like totally messed up?
I think she grew out of all of this. This is when she's like 12.
Before she
she's
had
not
kids
a grown adult telling me this.
That is a huge point that you did not make.
Okay,
I was 6.
You mentioned the age difference,
12.
but I didn't
She's
put
probably
it together.
11 or 12 years old.
Okay, all right. Okay. I thought this was a grown woman track.
And it traumatized me to even till this day. I will look over at that spot where I have not lived in over 30 years and be like, nope. Well, I'm excited today because.
Do you want to get started? Like this is getting started.
Get started.
Hello, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast from the City Rise Network. Hosted by Jennifer Dennis and produced by me, Justin Kello, we're a podcast that was supposed to be focused on parenting, but we've kind of lost the plot along the way. Honestly, we don't know what this podcast is about, but we talk to incredible people who love Jesus, and our hope is to provide encouragement and fun whenever possible. If our lack of clear direction bothers you, we apologize, but no one is making you listen to this podcast, unless you're married to Jennifer. Andy, thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast. We're excited to have you here today. And I'm here with our producer, editor, Justin.
Hello.
What's going on?
I'm just checking the audio levels. I am. I'm doing great. Not much is going on. What is up with you, Jennifer?
Well, I am excited about our guest today because she's connected to ACV, which I know you love.
Yes.
And so we're going to be talking with Catherine Weldon today and about her heart and her mission. I
had a moment at ACV yesterday.
You had a moment?
One of those moments where you feel like you're the worst dad in the world. And it had nothing to do with ACV. But so Bear woke up Saturday morning really early throwing up. And so we had kind of a whole weekend, but he didn't throw up again the entire weekend.
Okay.
So we're like, great. We made it through and we sent him to school on Monday, had a great Monday, no problems. And then on Tuesday, his teacher called me at lunchtime and said, hey, Bear is behaving strangely. He's not eating. He's not, being happy. Like he's being really kind of whatever. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And in my head, I'm like, gosh, he was throwing up on Saturday, but surely we're done with this. Like he made it the whole weekend and Monday without throwing up again. Like this has to be over. And so I said, well, what's next? She said, well, it's nap time. I said, does he normally sleep during nap time? She goes, no. And I said, well, how about you put it on for a nap? And if he goes to sleep, we'll know something's wrong. Like that'll be like the indication. And I said, I'll come at the end of nap time to check it out because I work in the same building. And so after nap time, I go down there and he's up and playing and I kind of peek my head in there and his teacher's like, I guess he's fine. He's up and playing and he's great. And I was like, awesome. And so I go back to work. And then at 4:00, I go and pick them up from after staff care or whatever they have care for after preschool's over. And I pick him up and I get down on my knees. I'm like, hey, how are you? How do you feel? What's up? And he goes, I feel good. I was like, your stomach feel fine? Yeah, it feels fine. I'm like, awesome. Let's go home. 30 seconds later, he was projectile vomiting all over the entrance to the kangaroos class, just splashing on children's feet.
Oh, Justin, gross.
Just everywhere. And so I'm like, and I go to sit him down. I'm like, nope, that's a bad idea. I go straight to the bathroom and he starts continuing and I just kind of put him at the toilet. So he's left a mess at the kangaroos class. And then he's also making a mess in the bathroom. And I'm like, I'm trying to clean up in the bathroom and keep him on the toilet, like over there so he can at least like not get any more on the ground. And then I see outside there's a mess. I'm like, I can't handle it. Like I can't do all this. And so I get him done throwing up. I get him cleaned up and the floor in the bathroom cleaned up. And I'm just like, I'm going. I'm sorry. They're like, no, someone's coming. Don't worry about it. We've got it taken care of.
No.
I'm just like, I can't clean up this throw up and deal with. I'm like, we got to get out of here because I don't know if he's done blowing up. But I was just, the reason I felt like a bad dad is because at lunchtime I was like, I'm a rock star. I followed my gut. I knew he was fine. I had him go through nap time and he woke up. He had a great rest of the day. Like, good job, Dad. And then just like so quickly did I realize how wrong I was. And of course, his teacher.
That's the worst feeling.
We kept him home the next day and I took him back today. His teacher was like, I heard about Bear. I'm like, yeah, I guess we should have followed your gut instead of mine. She's like,
as long as we don't follow his gut.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my most recent ACV story, but they were very gracious and kind to work on getting that cleaned up.
Yes, they're always very gracious and kind.
What is going on in your life, though, unrelated to throwing up? Is there anything you want to share
unrelated
with us?
to throwing up, which thankfully I'm not dealing with.
We can only tolerate one of those stories in an episode.
It's true. We can.
Yep.
Well, as you know, I just took a huge, quick turnaround trip to Nashville to visit my aunt.
Yes, the one
Aunt
that you're
Miller.
Also going to see in like a month anyway.
Yes. I owed her a trip, but I really wanted to go see her. So I got to head up to Nashville for about, I think it was like 48 hours. So I flew.
Okay.
And I rarely get to fly and I really never get to fly by myself.
Yeah.
And so I know this may come as a shock, but when I get into a plane on a plane, I become a complete introvert.
Okay.
I like the headphones in.
Yeah.
I really don't even talk to anybody. I really have this fear because I'm very chatty.
Yes.
And Andy calls me community Jen. And if we're in a situation where I'm just talking to strangers, if something's happened, like we're near an accident, a big storm, and we're with strangers, Andy calls me community Jen because I like to start just talking to strangers about everything going on.
Yeah.
And actually, folks, he has even a music song that he sings to the side.
Wow.
And he goes, community Jen, here she comes, connecting all she can with everybody that she knows.
Wow.
Or does it? Like he's singing it to the side.
That does not sound like,
when I'm literally talking to a stranger.
Passive aggressive at all.
He calls me community Jen.
Yeah.
But when I get on to a plane, I just have seen so many people comment about how they hate being bothered by people on the plane.
Oh, so you've reined it in.
So I reined it in completely to where I'm totally silent.
Good for you.
Yeah. Do you think that's good for me? It feels
No, I think so.
But what I do, okay, so here's the deal. I love to get to the airport early. And when I went, they had live music at Houston Hobby.
Dude, music follows you everywhere. Jury duty at the airport.
They have this live music. They have live music of professional performers.
Yeah. So
I get to the airport, I find my gate, but I just sit there and listen to this amazing violinist for a while. And then I go pick a good restaurant and I like to order something I would never eat.
Absolutely.
And I sit there for like the whole time.
You go like 2 hours early. You go make sure your gate exists, that it's not imaginary.
Yes,
and then you go
check in at the gate to make sure it's still there. See what it says.
Yeah.
And then head to like the restaurant and
Chili's
sit there
too or whatever.
and pretend that I travel all the time.
Yeah.
Like this is not a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I got on the flight. So I'm on the flight and they start to experience turbulence and they say, hey, we're about to hit a little turbulence.
Yeah.
I don't even think I realized that's going to happen because I've got headphones on, or maybe I just hear a little bit, but it didn't even bother me. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Justin, the turbulence was so intense. It was like we were strapped into a terrible roller coaster and it was up and swoof. I mean, I've never like felt like I lost gravity in a plane, but it was just like, vroom, vroom.
Yeah.
And I am like, I've gone from being, oh, this isn't too bad to, oh my goodness. So everybody in the plane around me is just acting like this is no big deal, but I'm kind of freaking out.
What are the flight attendants doing?
They're just like, hey, folks, make sure your seatbelts are on. They're no longer passing out soda, which I would have liked to have soda because I was feeling pretty nauseous at this point. But I just panic in a panic moment. I just like shift my head to the back of the plane and I make eye contact with one lady and my face is just like, is this how it all is? My face is so shocked. And she just looks at me like, yep, this is probably how it all is. Like, she just kind of gives me the nod, like, this is what happens.
Oh, no.
And I turned around, and all I did was I whispered to the person next to me, wow, that was a lot.
Yeah.
And she goes, girl, it was. You know that, honey? It sure was. And I didn't say anything else, but I thought, man, I wanted so bad to connect with the community, make all these jokes. But I didn't.
I'm going to say this. I think there are people who do like to talk to strangers. There are people like you. So I think to assume that nobody wants to talk to you is not the correct path. I think it's just picking up on cues. You know, if they've got their headphones in, they don't want to do it. Or if they're giving you really short, like, they don't want to do it.
Oh, thanks, yes.
Like, I don't think it's wrong for you to talk to
people
that want to talk, that want to talk to you. Absolutely. You can't assume that nobody wants to talk. But I think you just need to be very aware of the cues. And I think they'll let you know. But as far as like planes, like being afraid of like that, I hate flying, but I love being places other than where I live. So I kind of have that every time. Like, I'm just like, dear God, like I am the most faithful Christian on a plane.
It stresses you.
I hate flying.
You hate flying, Justin?
I hate it.
I would never have guessed that about you.
I hate it. Like, I hate it. So like, I like the airport. I like, in airport, everything's like monopoly money. I don't really care about budget anymore because it's so expensive. I'm just like, whatever. Yeah. I'll buy a big, large Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Who cares? Like, it's $8. Like, for some reason, I like that part of it. I like the like airport part of it, but the actual plane, I'm like, get me off this thing. Like
wow.
Especially during the beginning and landing. But like once we're in the air, I kind of forget about it. And then I randomly think like, oh my gosh, I'm a mile above. Like I'm a mile away from land right now.
Right. I feel that way on a ship. I don't like to be on a ship.
Cruises, I will never do a cruise again.
Me either.
Dude, there was nights where I'd look out to the darkness and I was like, if I fell, I'm gone. Like no one would know. No one would find me.
Yes.
I cannot handle this.
I'm really surprised that you do not love. Wow.
I think it's confined spaces. I am not claustrophobic, but I am big. And so any confined space.
Anywhere you are on the plane, it does trigger.
And the same with cruise ships because the cabins are small. Like it's just, I'm not into it.
So, talking about risk taking today. Is that the worst transition ever? Well, I'm excited about our guest today. Speaking of ACB and the week that you've had, our guest is wonderful. Is just mission minded about serving infants and babies. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy hearing her story. So please welcome with me, Catherine Weldon. As one of our guests, she's one of my favorite people because Catherine can make me laugh so hard. And
That's just because you made me laugh first. So then I have to think of something funny.
The quickest wit. And I will not put her on the spot to be funny right now because I hate that when people are like, Jennifer, funny. Make them laugh.
Say something funny. Yeah.
Anyway, Catherine is also the assistant director at ACV, a children's village here.
Shout out ACV.
ACV. And I actually asked Catherine on the show to talk about something that has been her heart over the last few years. And it's a calling on her life, a mission and a purpose. And I wanted to hear her tell a little bit about her fostering journey.
Yeah.
So,
How long have you been ACV though? 2 years, 3 years?
This is my second year. Finishing up my second year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Listen, my kids have gone through ACV. They're also, Maggie comes for staff care afterwards. The ship that you are running is perfect for my family. Like,
we love your family.
We're so thankful for the ministry of ACV and, you coming in. Obviously, there's been great employees our entire 5 years here, but you coming on is really, I think, it's just really a great situation.
Well, thank you.
And it's nice that you're a mom yourself and you've got you've got a kid that you're keeping up with there as well. It's just different when the people working there have kids your age. Like they understand.
They get it.
Yeah.
And we've got great teachers and great admin there that had kids years ago. But having someone in the trenches with us, I think is really
oh my gosh,
helpful.
yes. And not only have I had her kids, but I got to work with Kristen last year. So I've had all facets of your family, and I get to go pick up Maggie sometimes.
Yes, and sometimes she's awful.
I always look forward to my walks.
Yes.
The walks with Maggie.
Wonderful.
Yeah, always wonderful. All right. Well, it's kind of you to say that.
No, we have fun. Yeah. I finally learned, like, usually if I promise a popsicle when we get back, like that always makes the walk home
well, there you go.
a little jollier.
The problem is she thinks Ethan is so cool.
I know.
The guy that normally picks her up is like the coolest guy in the world. And so anybody else comes to get Maggie, she's like, well, where's Ethan?
Yeah.
It's like, well, he's busy, all right? Like, I could walk you back.
Well, Maggie and I used to have this great relationship, and it's taken a turn because we did this little skit on this video where my character had to eat a sandwich with peanut butter and jelly and then pickles.
Yes.
Oh.
And for some reason, Maggie will never get over that.
She'll never forget it.
She's like,
so every time she sees me, I'm like, hey, Maggie, you ate a sandwich with peanut butter, jelly, and pickles.
Yep. You're dead to me.
I know. It's like, that's all that Maggie sees when she says
she's like,
Maggie, you're growing up. Yeah. Peanut butter, jelly, pickles. And I'm like, this is probably going to be a while.
It'll be forever.
It's in her brain.
Yeah.
Well, Catherine, you have been on, when we brought you on, one of the things I just love most about you is this passion that you have for fostering. Will you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got involved in this?
Yeah. So it's kind of been a really interesting trajectory as far as the agency I work with. I started volunteering with them when I was in high school, and then started their YPO group with a bunch of my friends out of college. So it's like always just been this kind of like part of my life in a way, but definitely not as large a part of my life. And then several years ago, my husband passed away, and I was just, still in that, like, what's the next, what are things going to look like for me? Am I going to be a mom? Am I going to be able to kind of like have that dream happen? And in the back of my head, I just always kind of kept thinking about Casa de Esperanza, and just wanted to get back involved with them, but didn't know what capacity. And then just kept listening to that little voice, and reached out and went to their orientation to become a foster parent. And I just told myself, okay, I'm just going to do this one little thing. I'm going to go to the orientation. And if I go to that and the voice is like, run, then I'll do that. And so I just kept do the next thing. And eventually I ran out of things to do except for foster a baby. And
was it uniquely babies?
Well, so the agency only intakes children 0 to 6, but I would say 90% of their kiddos are under the age of 3. And a lot of them are babies who have come straight home from the hospital after being born that go into Casa's care. And then, they're working with birth mom or parents to try to get them in a place where they're ready to take them back or ready to care for them. But it is a lot of infants, a lot of little babies. And so that was my first baby and that's what kind of happens with Casa is once you kind of find your little, sweet spot, I guess, of like what your heart is and what you love to take care of, then they kind of call you every time they, have that particular type of child. So 4 years ago, I got, sent a picture of a baby and said, we think this would be a great baby for you to take care of. And so that was the biggest, obviously, leap. It was, really not as hard to think about it, but the reality,
sure, maybe just one more training.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you want to call someone else? But yeah, that's when you kind of stop listening to the voice, and that the other voice that's like, I don't know, is this the right thing? And you kind of are like, this is what I was, what I've been working towards. And so you just kind of have to dive right in. And I've been so fortunate that I have parents who were really supportive and really, my dad is more supportive from a distance in terms of diapers and holding babies and things. He's like, pat me on the back, kind of.
I'm here for you.
But my mom's been amazing. My friends have just been amazing. And then finding, 4 babies later.
So it's been 4 babies.
4 babies.
Oh, wow. I don't think I knew that it was 4.
So, yes. So, my other babies have been with me and then gone home. And so, that's something that you can't, is coming with how their case is playing out, how mom is doing, but definitely, a new experience for me to say goodbye and, for sure bittersweet, but yeah. So that's where I am.
So what's the shortest span you've had one, and what's like?
Yeah. So I had my first baby was the shortest, 4 months.
Okay.
And then it was one of those things, after she went home, I was like, okay, who do you have? It was hard to go back as much as I was so scared to get started. Then I kind of, and it's a very unique experience. None of us really, other than when your kiddos maybe go to college and all of a sudden the house is quiet, it's odd to go from having this baby who's 24/7 and then all of a sudden quiet.
Yeah.
Empty house. So I was like, I'm ready, I want to know. And so my next baby was about 6 months. The next one was about 10 months, and now almost 2 years.
And it's still fostering at this point.
Still fostering.
When does it turn into something else?
So always depending on birth moms and their cases, and are they working their plans? Are they working services? Are they, engaging in the process? I don't foster through CPS, so that we don't have a lot of court involvement with the kiddos I'm working with. This is really the agency working with the parent. And so I really love that too, because they do not switch caseworkers on the parents. They, those caseworkers learn those parents, learn their, what their struggles, their history. I mean, so many of them were the same little baby I'm taking care of. They were that baby, at one point. So I always try to keep that in mind. And whenever people ask me about it, how can you, how can they do that to the child or whatever, an outsider seeing the parent as sort of something they could never imagine themselves as a parent doing to their child, whatever. You have to see them as that baby and see that they, that's where they came from. Yeah. So
now, is there any pathway to this child being your child by adoption, or is it always temporary?
So this certain situation, and hopefully is moving towards adoption, based on, the case and based on the history and sort of where we are in the process. There's not any engagement on mom's side at this point. And so, there is a point where the agency will have to say this child needs permanency. This child needs a forever plan. And so that's where we're heading.
Wow. Yeah. I saw a TikTok about people who were fostering, and they say one of the biggest, questions / objections to someone taking on fostering is like, well, I don't want to foster because what if I get too attached to the kid and I lose it? And the person said, that's the point.
Yes,
the attachment is the point. They need that attachment. They need that person invested in them. And so what do you say when people say that same thing to you?
My gosh, you said it so perfectly. Yeah. And that's 100% what everyone should always think of when they ask that same question, like, but I don't want to get too attached. I don't want to say goodbye. And I just, oh my gosh, I feel exactly the same way that child deserves to have someone that attaches that strongly and is that sad to see them go. Like, wouldn't your child, your kiddos, like, don't your kids deserve that? Like, another thing I think about, because people, they want to avoid pain.
Right.
We all want to avoid pain if possible. And so fostering seems like something that you're choosing possible pain.
Right.
But I always think parents will say, I would take a bullet for my child. I would jump in front of a moving bus for my child. And so we would choose pain for our own kiddos. And so just that, to have that ability to go into something where you are choosing potential pain, but like for the sake of this precious child who, deserves people that will do that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love that you just kept saying yes until God shut a door and he didn't shut any doors. You know what I'm saying? Like you kept getting involved in this organization. Before I forget what's the name of this organization in case someone wants to look it up?
Casa de Esperanza.
Okay.
It is only in Houston.
Okay.
So there's several other, there's a lot of agencies out there and there's a lot of foster care agencies whose mission is adoption.
Right.
There's foster to adopt, agencies specifically designed for that. Casa, that's not their goal. Their goal is always reunification.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they're really working towards that, working with parents towards that. It's just that you can only ever do so much. And then sometimes things, people do end up adopting from there. But if anyone is, interested in looking into that agency, it's not somewhere I would go if your goal is adoption.
Right.
I would, there are a lot of families who they have older kiddos and they still, want to foster. And I think they would say too, like the gift it's given their children.
Right.
It's just such an experience, like unique experience that opens their eyes so much to other people and what life can be like.
Well, that distinction is helpful. I didn't catch that early on, that like if you go with this specific organization, you kind of go understanding like this probably won't be permanent. It could be, and you need to be open to that. You can't go on, but
they're working really hard on reconciliation for the families.
Really hard. They are getting moms into programs. They are getting them, signed up for services. They're visiting moms in programs. I mean, they're visiting in jail sometimes. So, their goal is, and you have to kind of understand that too, like as the foster parent, you're really the last person that's going to be considered in terms of what you think should happen.
Right.
So you have to kind of like check that ego. We all think we know best.
Right.
I mean, I definitely.
Especially after you've bonded with this child.
And
and you've known, and you're the only caretaker they've had for their whole lives.
Because you're sitting there thinking, but I've done everything,
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's so good to be aware of what the organization's goals are.
Yeah.
Because I see, oh my goodness, just so many friends and connections who have been in that situation where they weren't able to get the child or had them and lost the child. And it's devastating.
It is.
Especially when that expectation's out of place. So I think that's such a good word, is to be really aware of what the organization's purpose is so that you can guide your expectations accordingly.
Yeah. And support them as well, And I have had moments where, it's not what I thought should happen or the timing of when I thought something should happen. But like ultimately I was at peace. I was always thought, well, okay. If this mother is now on a better trajectory, then hopefully their child is, and then, down the line when that child has children. So I think that's something to keep in mind too. You're like such a tiny piece of like a bigger picture.
I think that's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that you do that. I think that, so what do you think has been maybe a couple of your biggest things that you've learned in this process that you'll kind of keep with you forever?
Well, I wish I had learned patience.
You've earned it. Now you have it, just not the fun way.
Yeah, I think, I have not become the most patient person, but I have been forced into being patient. And like you said, that voice of, that voice that's encouraging you, that's planting a seed, and, like being more open to that voice. And I think it's taught me a lot about my own sadness. I think I was surprised how connected I've been with the babies in the terms of like, I am living a situation that I never thought I was going to live. This is not the picture I had for my life. I thought things would go a much different way, and then they didn't. And they were things that were out of my control. And so I see that in those babies. Like they are, we all picture this baby with all these possibilities and all this, hope and things for the future. But some of these babies are in situations that were out of their control. And it just, I don't know, it taught me a lot about trying to make something out of those situations.
Gosh, that's huge. I love that. So this idea of like, you would never say, this tragic thing with your husband was a good thing. Of course not.
No.
But taking that and finding a way to continue to do good in a way that you wouldn't have done if you were still in that situation. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like the way you're using your situation to impact people that you probably wouldn't have had a chance to impact, I think is really encouraging for anybody facing really any tragedy or crisis. Like, of course, no one would ever say, I'm so glad that happened. No. Like, that's not what we're saying. But the fact that if you're open to it, God can use circumstances like that to help you do good in ways you never thought possible and never would have been possible in another situation.
Well, and to teach you that level of empathy. I read a quote that said, small thinkers think in opinions, but great thinkers think in empathy. And I think that's such a comment on empathy, of how you've learned to live empathy.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. I mean, not everybody can get to that point.
Right.
I'm trying to think if I'm at that point.
You're all in extremely empathetic.
I'm sure my empathy score is not that high.
What do you mean not that high? I feel like you're always controlling people's feelings.
Oh, you are. You're very.
You guys are so nice.
That reminds me of this New Girl scene where a guy and New Girl are talking, and she's struggling because she just really is worried about what somebody's feeling. And he goes, "Are you telling me you go around thinking about what people feel all day long?" She goes, "Yeah." He's like, "How do you get anything done?" She goes, "It's hard." And that's like, done. That's me and my wife to a T. Like, she is so empathetic and concerned with what people are feeling. And I'm like, how do you get anything done caring how other people feel all the time?
Yeah. It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
But it's a superpower for those that need empathy too.
Yeah. It's true. I think that's such a beautiful picture. So, Catherine, thank you so much for visiting with us.
Sweet to even invite me on here. And I love talking about fostering, and I always love to, whenever somebody is interested, like I'm always happy to talk about
this. Is tangentially related, but to your what you do for work. Is ACV registration still open, or is that already closed for the fall?
We're still open.
Okay, great.
We still have a few spots if anybody has 2-year-olds out there.
Okay.
Yeah, for next year.
Okay.
I mean, we are always like giving tours and wanting people to come. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, it's an incredible ministry and service to our community. So I didn't want to not mention in case someone does know somebody.
That team leading ACV, top notch.
I mean,
they're amazing.
Listen, there's a lot of things that's good about working at this church, and there's no shortage. We can make a long list. to me, ACV is at the very top for my family. Like, it's just the way our church cares for our families through ACV and through the after school care. Like, it's a great ministry. And then on top of that, we've got people in our community who are being loved on and encouraged that may not be Christian, you know what I'm saying? Like that may not know Jesus, this is their only touch point with Christ is through a children's village. And so I'm just really thankful for it and I love what y'all do.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. Yes.
And so we do have one last silly question.
Oh gosh.
The final question.
It's called the final question. And we
all answer it.
We answered at the end of every show. Justin and I will go first.
Yes.
What's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you in public?
What a question.
Besides being on this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, wow. You know what's funny is we walked into this today and Jennifer's like, I got to find a question. So she found that while you were talking.
I didn't find that while we were talking.
Oh, it just came to your mind?
I thought of it while I was talking.
As it was coming out of your mouth.
I was like, I don't think we've ever done most embarrassing moment.
Embarrassing.
Most embarrassing moment.
Just something embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Do you, can you start? I need to hear.
I always have embarrassing moments.
Yeah.
That have happened to me in public. You know, one little embarrassing moment, this is just an example. I was at the Disney store and I was walking around with Andy and Olivia and they had fragrances. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. Fragrances. So I just get one of those and spray it all over my body. And I'm like, this is amazing. This smells so good. And I look at the lady and I go, this smells amazing. And she goes, well, it's more of a room spray. and I said, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. I like to smell like Belle's Ballroom. And I just like put it back up and
she
gently walked out of the store. And every time,
your skin all right?
How many times have I had to say this to Andy? I'll meet you guys outside. Not the first time. Hey, I'll meet you guys outside. Hey, what happened? Nope.
Yeah.
Outside.
Yeah.
So
this is not my story, but it's related to what you just said. I recently was at a little like boutique shop with some people. I will not name any names. What the boutique shop was like creams and like, you know, that sort of place.
Sure.
And there was a chest rub, like a Vicks chest rub, but it was like, you know, homemade or whatever, some sort of thing.
Dear.
And, you know, it had a sample out. And this friend just took it and started smearing it on his chest. He didn't like take a shirt off, but like he got in there and the person working at the shop is like, I've never seen that happen. Usually, you know, you just put a little on your hand
and the back of the hand.
It's like, well, it's called chest rub. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's fair.
That's fair.
But she was like, I've never seen that happen. But that wasn't my moment. The thing that brings me the most shame that I think of probably once a week is when I was in 6th grade. It was my last year of forced physical education, because once you got into band, once you got into band, that counted as your PE for some reason. Like, and so by 7th grade, I was done with PE. But 6th grade, last year of PE, just surviving at this point. You know, I did not thrive in the PE world. I just like, how do I get by? And so we had a day where we were playing our week, you know, you do a week of flag football. And listen, like dodgeball is the worst PE game because there's no way to not be in the action. Flag football is the best because you can stand on the field participating and do nothing.
Yeah.
Just literally nothing. Like there is no,
maybe some like,
yes, but you can stand out of the way. Dodgeball, you're in trouble. So I was excited about flag football. I was like, I can stand in the middle of the field, get my points for being on the field and do nothing. And so I did that for the week. But on one game, I was like, you know, hey, well, you know, if something comes up, great. So this guy had the ball on the other team and he was running towards me to the end zone. And I was like, and he was running really close to me. And I was like, this guy must just know that I do nothing. He must know that my default is to just stand here. So he's not even worried about me. Oh, no. So I'm just going to reach out. I'm going to grab this flag. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to save the day. I'm just going to blow everybody away. And so I grabbed this guy's flag and he's obviously just so angry, so upset, just really mad. And I'm like, that makes sense. I just ruined his touchdown. And he turns around and he goes, "You're on my team." And so I think about that a lot. I'll never
you did not
forget
move
it.
any forward, no forward steps in any capacity that
I'll never
day.
forget it. But that's what comes to my mind.
So we've given you some good time. Can you think of one?
Gosh. Well, gosh, I'm sure there's something I'm not thinking of, but this is like secondhand embarrassment, like what Olivia. I don't know if we're supposed to mention names, but through you.
Right.
This is just looking back embarrassing. But when I was about 7 years old, I was in one of those like money tunnel things.
Oh, yes. I've never done one of those.
Yes. And it was through a radio station at the mall.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was in there. This is not sounding embarrassing, but when
you were in the tunnel,
I was in it as a 7-year-old, like grabbing money and like shoving it through the little slot. That was the other tricky thing. You couldn't just like shove it in your pockets. You had to slide it out a little slot. And so I just kind of look back and I'm like, you know, that was really the 80s when you're in the mall, in the radio station.
Doing some sort of like,
I think I wore like the T-shirt from the radio
Kiss
station.
96 FM.
Do you remember how much money you made?
It was like $7. And I thought that was a lot. I think I just like kept it and kept counting it over and over again. Well, because they made you slide it out the slot. And that was a lot.
Clever. That was well played. Because if it was in your pockets, it would have been so much better.
Gosh, but
that's funny.
Just imagining being a grown up watching that happen.
Yes, that's what I mean. I'm like, I'm sure my parents were like, because I volunteered and was like,
how did this happen?
Get me in that thing. I'm sure they were like,
I bet nobody hit more than maybe $10 on that ride.
No, I mean, adults, maybe, I don't know.
I will say,
if you're in that machine and you're like,
if you ever find yourself in that situation, I've heard that you make a bowl with your shirt and somehow the wind gets it into the bowl of your shirt. And I guess you have to like whatever, but put it through the slots. So if you're ever in that situation, I think there is a way to win that. But as a 7-year-old, there wasn't the internet to look it up and find the best strategies.
We didn't have Google.
That's a great one. Well, thank you. Thank you, Catherine, for being here.
So nice
and if you guys are interested in more information about the show.
Yes. Thank you for listening or watching. If you're listening, the link to this YouTube video, our playlist, is in the description. If you want to watch it, we'd love for you to check that out. If you're listening on a podcast app, rate, review, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like or a comment. It is free, okay? And it helps us in the algorithm, so we'd love for you to do that. If you've got any people you think we could talk to, email us at podcast@cityrise.org. We'd love to check in with people that you know that love Jesus, that we can talk to you about what God's doing in their life. And as always... Oh, if you need information about what we talked about today, ACV or the fostering company, the links are in the bio. The links are down there. I just want to make sure they know the links are down there if they want them.
There you go. Thank you guys for joining us. We hope you've had an almost amazing time on the Almost Amazing Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Almost Amazing Podcast from the City Rise Network based in Houston, Texas. City Rise is a partnership of church campuses, nonprofits, and missionaries devoted to lifting our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information or to find a church campus close to you in the Houston area, visit cityrise.org.